Tov. Today's daf yomi is Nedarim daf Ayin Hey, Nedarim 75. And we're going to start in the middle of 75a at the Mishnah. Ha'omer le'ishto, a person says to his wife. Person that says the Mishnah. The person gets up and says to his wife, Kol Nedarim shetaturi, every vow that you're going to make. Mikan ad shavo mimakom poni. He says to his wife, any vow you're going to make from now until I come back from a certain place. Let's say he's standing in DC and he's traveling to China. And he says, listen, I don't know where I'm going. I don't know when I'm coming back, but I want to say in advance, all your vows are upheld. But he says, I want to say that all your vows are upheld. Well, Amar Kum, we're going to say that this is not effective. He has done nothing. Why? Why does it not work? So the commentaries offer different theories. The major theory is because it's something that's not yet in existence. Since it's not yet in existence, he can't uphold it. Other theories are because he's not really upholding it, because maybe there will be a vow that he's not so strong about. So maybe he won't really want to uphold the vow. So different theories about it. Rabbi Eliezer says, Mufar. But let's say he says, let's say it says all these vows that you're going to make, I'm actually rejecting them in advance. Then Rabbi Eliezer says, Mufar, that the husband can reject the vows in advance. The husband is able to reject the vows in advance. So we're saying, according to this theory, the husband has the ability to reject the vows in advance. The Chachamim say it's not rejected. So Amar Rabbi Eliezer says, so Rabbi Eliezer says, I'm going to explain to you the theory of how we're able to reject the vows in advance. How we could say if the husband wants to reject the vows in advance, it's rejected. He says, Rabbi Eliezer says, if he's able to reject the vows that come to a stage of prohibition, he says, if the husband can reject the vows once they're already in existence, he has the ability to reject them. For sure, he can reject them even before they come into existence. You had a question about that, Bill? So this is what we're saying, that the way to formulate this is that prevention is obviously stronger than fixing something once it's already happened. Meaning, if it's in existence already and now the husband has the ability to fix it, for sure he has the ability to prevent it in the first place from happening. Prevention is the best medicine. Prevention is the best medicine. Don't get yourself in a bad situation where you're going to need a miraculous fix. So prevent this bad situation from happening. You don't, it's not as, you're not the hero if you prevent it. Nobody notices, but that's always the best. So I'm sorry, Bill, yes.
I guess my question though is conceptually, that argument works both for prohibiting and upholding.
So what's the difference conceptually between prohibiting and upholding? Yeah, because upholding, all you're doing is you're not fixing it, you're just maintaining it. And so therefore, Eliezer is saying that there it's not yet in existence. So, or else maybe you can challenge to uphold it. You really need to uphold something, but to fix it, you need to get rid of it. So, yeah,
fixing is only getting rid of it.
Yeah, fixing is only getting. Right, exactly. So Rabbi Eliezer is saying, so anyway, that's the basic distinction. He says that you can reject it in advance, but you can't uphold it in advance. And the reason why you can reject it in advance, the most logical way to understand it is because prevention is stronger tactic than fixing something. And so Rabbi Eliezer is saying, if you're allowed to reject that,
instead of fixing, maybe you think
undoing.
It's untying, rather than.
Right. So Rabbi Eliezer says, so the rabbis reject this argument. Say the rabbis, the Chachamim respond, it says in the verse, her husband, on the day he hears the vows, the husband has the ability to uphold the vow, and the husband has the ability to reject the vow, which means those vows that can be upheld, i.e. the vows that are already in existence when he upholds them, those are the vows that can be rejected. But those vows that cannot be rejected, Those vows that cannot be upheld cannot be rejected. So that's the fundamental argument between Rabbi Eliezer and the Chachamim. Rabbi Eliezer says you can reject the vow, the husband can reject the vows in advance. Chachamim say you can't. So the Gemara says the very lumdisha question. Nedarim has the most lumdisha questions of all the Masechtas. So the Gemara says the question in Nedarim is Ibalahu. Well, Rabbi Eliezer, according to Rabbi Eliezer, he says you can annul these vows in advance. Let's ask the question like this: what's the nature? Do we say mechal chalin ubetelin? Does the vow take effect and then comes in the husband's pre-revocation and he annuls it? The vow took effect, and then the husband, because he had at one point months ago said, I reject all your vows you make. Now he comes in and rejects it. Or Dilma, or perhaps Mochal and Klau, or maybe the vow, because he says I'm rejecting it in advance, the vow never took effect in the first place. That's the question the Gemara asks. What's the nature of according to Rabbi Eliezer, when he says the husband has the ability to reject these vows in advance, does he reject it from ever happening, or does he reject it once it happens? So you say, okay, great question. Like the question is like, what makes the tea sweet? Is it the stirring or the sugar? I mean, why do we care about this question? Like, what's the difference? Gemara asked that question. Well, my nafkamina, why do we care? What makes it? What's the difference? Gemara says, I'll tell you what's the difference. Kigon, when we're on the top of 75b, the Gemara says, Kigon, the itfis achrine v'hadin nidra. So no, what's going on here is, the case is that somebody else associated them with her vow. So basically the woman was saying, the husband says, I reject your vows in advance. The woman gets up, the husband's in China, and the woman gets up and says, I vow to be a Nazarite. Now another person walks by and says, I'm just like her. So, which by the way, you could see a whole like revival gathering, and everybody's getting up and saying, I'm this, and now she says, I'm a Nazarite. And the husband says, and the guy next to her says, or the girl next to her says, I'm just like her. Now, if you say the vow never takes effect, then this other person's proclamation is nothing. But if you say that the vow takes effect, it's just canceled, then this other person became a Nazarite. So the Gemara explains like that. If you say the vow takes effect, then her vow takes effect. And the other person who associates with them, they're taking effect. And if you say the vow does not take effect, then there's nothing to the other person's association. So the Gemara says, let's try and learn how to prove from this. So the Gemara says, let's learn how to prove from this. Tashma, Amar Rabbi Eliezer. Let's try and bring a proof. Again, we want to know whether or not the vow takes effect in the first place or not. So Amar Rabbi Eliezer, let's bring a proof from our Mishnah. Im hafer nedarim shebolo kal isur. If you can reject vows that come into the state of prohibition, shebolo kal isur, lo yafer nedarim shelo ba'u kal isur. Rabbi Eliezer's argument for being able to annul it in advance is as if you can, once he can reject a vow that actually came into existence, for sure he can also reject the vow that never came into existence in the first place. So that proves that this vow never came into existence in the first place. Isn't that a proof? Shema mina. Well, Colin, doesn't this prove that the vow never came into existence in the first place? And where it says, no, not a proof. Mikatani she'ain ba'in. Does it really say that they never came into existence in the first place? No. What it means is shalo ba'u katani, adayin lo ba'u. No, it means that they still have not yet come into existence. If he can revoke vows that have already come into existence, for sure he can revoke vows that have not yet come into existence. So we have not proved anything from our Mishnah. So now we're going to try and prove it from something else. This is from the basic point as a background, is that a person has the ability to annul a vow in advance. The person, we learned earlier on 23b, this is the Kol Nidre Daf. A person, if he doesn't want any of his vows in the next year to be upheld, he could stand the Rosh Hashanah and he'd say, all the vows that I am in the future going to make will be canceled. And that will be enough to cancel. You had a question, George?
Yes, it seems to me that there's a problem with the vagueness or indefiniteness of the the thing that's being rejected in advance. I mean, it seems to me that you have a specificity issue. There are things that you don't know. If you don't know what the vow is,
So so that's a good point. That's why that's one of the theories about why he can't uphold a vow in advance. But when it comes to rejection, maybe Lezer's saying you could do it even without being specific. But when it comes to upholding, that's one of the main theories of why you can't uphold the vow in advance. But it's a good point, but it's a very good point. But maybe Lezer doesn't agree with that. But yes, it's a very good point. So now we continue on. We go back to the Gemara on 23b. It said that a person can stand in the beginning of the year and annul all his vows in advance. This is the Kol Nidre daf. We talk about the concept of Kol Nidre, and there's a whole discussion amongst commentaries, different language. Kol Nidre annulling the vows in the past that you made this past year, or are you standing there and annulling vows in the future? And so that is two major theories about how we view Kol Nidre. By the way, one of the books that I'm in the middle of reading is this book about Alexander Hamilton, and it's proving that he's Jewish. And one of the major cases of Alexander Hamilton's career was when he stood up in a New York court and defended, he was a lawyer in a case where two Jews were accused by the other lawyer saying that we should reject their testimony just because they're Jewish, because everybody knows Jews, once a year, they annul all their vows that they're going to make. And so we can't trust Jews. So this was the big kinyaron against the Jews that we did the Kol Nidre. And Alexander Hamilton gave a very impassioned speech about not being a bigot and not rejecting Jews. And Alexander Hamilton went to a yeshiva growing up. He went to a Jewish school. This is a fact. This is not everybody agrees. Even those who say he's not Jewish, they say everybody agrees he went to a Jewish school.
So we do Kol Nidre.
Yeah.
Do we prevent them from taking effect, or do they take effect and get revoked?
Oh, so that's the question about Kol Nidre. So that's here. So that's the question. So Tashma. So let's go to we're trying to get to that question. I'm Rabbi Eliezer. You see, Rabbi Eliezer said to the Chachamim, this is his argument. So the Gemara takes it up. Umab and Makom. So a different argument that Rabbi Eliezer makes. Umab and Makom Shein made fair nidre atzmo mish another. Just like in a circumstance where a person, once he makes a vow, he cannot annul the vow on his own. If you make a vow, you can't go to yourself and say, I annul my vow. You have to go to a chacham to annul your vow, or to a bezdin. Mishanadar made fair. Just like in a situation, made for nidre atzmo mishanadar, that once he makes the vow, he can't annul it. Made for nidre atzmo achalo yidor, but yet he could stand up on Rosh Hashanah and annul his vows in advance. So therefore, makom shemade fair nidre ishto mishatidor, in a circumstance where he can indeed revoke his wife's vows once she has made the vow. For sure, he should be able to revoke her vows in advance. So now we go to Jeff's question. My love the ishto dumya delay. Aren't his wife's vows very similar to his vows? My love the ishto dumya delay. Mahu dulo. Just like him, his vows never take effect. Just like him, his vows never take effect at all, because if they did take effect, he would have had to. Once they would take effect, he would have to go to the chacham, and his modah, as Jeff was pointing out, it never takes effect, because if it take effect, he can't annul it. He'd have to go to the chacham to have it annul it. So his never took effect in the first place, and so therefore his statement only works if it prevents it from taking place. So just like his never take effect in the first place, so to his wife's never take effect in the place. Because if his took effect, he can't annul it. He'd have to go to the chacham. So there, to his wife's never take effect. So the Gemara says, no. Even though we're comparing the two cases, we would still say that it's not a complete comparison. Each one has their own separate way, meaning to say his own now vows could be annulled prior to them taking effect. But his wife's vows, it's possible that they took effect and then he canceled them, because he has the ability to cancel his wife's vows. You had a question, Bill? You're looking at me like
This phrase,
hakadita, hakadita. Yeah,
is that what you just said?
yeah. So, like this one has its laws and this one has its laws. So even though we compare,
They're not,
Can't extrapolate
they're
one
not
to the other.
good.
mean to say, even though we are comparing them, we can't compare them in every single law. There is a comparison, but not totally across the board. Okay, so then the Talmud says another attempt. So the Talmud wants to try and answer this question from the case of mikvah. We're going to answer a question of vows from a case of mikvah. We know that the law states that so the law states that if you become tamei, let's say you touch a sheretz, you have to go into the mikvah in order to become tahor. So that's the basic idea. Let's say you're in the mikvah, and while you're in the mikvah, you touch this toad, this dead toad. So the mikvah doesn't prevent you from becoming tamei while you're touching. Even though you're in the mikvah, you become tamei, so then you'd have to immerse again. So that's one background law. Now we have another law. Let's say that there's a person who is ritually pure who swallowed a ring that was tamei, and then so he has this tamei ring inside him, and now he immerses in the mikvah while the ring is inside him. So then we're going to say under those circumstances, the ring does not become ritually pure. The ring was tamei. The ring, let's say, it touched a dead body, and then he immersed in the mikvah. The ring is inside of him. The ring will not become ritually pure. But let's say he comes out of the mikvah and he throws up the ring. The ring will still be tamei at that point. But if the ring was tahora, if the ring was ritually pure and was inside of him, then the person prevents it from becoming tamei. So, for example, let's say he swallows a ring, and then the ring's inside of him, and then he enters into a tent with a dead body inside of it. The ring itself is not ritually impure. So if he spit up the ring will be pure. Okay, so now we go into the text of our. Now we're going to see how this is a proof. So Tashma, so the rabbis said the following: Amrlo, Rabbi Eliezer. The Chachamim said to Rabbi Eliezer, Uma mikvah, just like a mikvah, shemal asat tamei and mitumasan, ein matzio al tahora milatame, just like a mikvah, which if there was something that was tamei, and this person immerses in the mikvah, and hold on one second, let me just make this point. We'll come back to you, George. I'm gonna just mute it, and we'll come right back in a moment. So let's say this person was ritually. Let's say this person was tamei, and he immerses in the mikvah. Then the mikvah will make him tahor, will make him ritually pure. Nevertheless, ein matzil al hatahorim. Nevertheless, mila tamei. Nevertheless, the mikvah, if you are immersing in the mikvah, it's not going to prevent you from becoming tamei from a rodent or a toad. Let's say while you're in the water, while you're down below the water and you touch this toad, you're not going to become rich, that it's going to make you tamei. So just, even though the mikvah could take you from a state of tumah to a state of tahara, from impurity to purity, nevertheless, it cannot save you while you're inside it from becoming tamei. Adam, so to a person, she'ein malas a tamei and mitumasan, a person who cannot make something that's tamei and elevate it to a state of ritual purity. So, for example, if he swallowed the ring and then he immerses in the mikvah, the ring will remain ritually impure. Einodin shelo yatzil tahora milatame. For sure, should be the case that so for sure it should be the case that he can't save something that is tahor from that he swallows from becoming tamei inside inside the skin. So just like we find by the mikvah that it's easier. So how's this a proof? So just like we see by the mikvah that it's easier to purify something than to save something. It's easier to purify something that was tamei and to make it tahor. And it's easier to do that than preventing something that is tahor from becoming tamei. So too, we should say by a person that it's easier that he will make something that he can make something that is tamei tahor, than saving something that is tahor from becoming tamei in the first place. And so therefore, if he can, if he's not able to be mitayar the tama, if he's not able to save the ring, so to speak, by swallowing it, for sure, he's not able to save the ring from becoming tamei. And so therefore, since we say that it's not the halacha, but rather the halacha is that he does indeed protect this ring from becoming tamei in the first place. And so therefore, and it's the opposite of the law of the mikvah, where he can become tamei while he's in the mikvah. So therefore, we can't learn a kal v'chomer like this. And so therefore, we can't make a kal v'chomer like that from that which is we can't make a kal v'chomer and say from that which was that once it can take effect to something that didn't take effect at all, but everything is going to have its own law. And so from here we see that Chachamim are overriding the Kal V'chomer that Rabbi Eliezer said in our Mishnah, because Rabbi Eliezer said if you can reject vows that became prohibited, for sure he should be able to reject vows in advance of them becoming prohibited. But we see from this case of the ritual impurity that there's a big distinction that between prior to something taking effect or after taking effect. And so therefore we can't make this kal v'chomer, because just like we don't say that by Tumah, because we could have said that argument by Tumah, but we don't say that argument by Tumah. We say that even though he could prevent something, the ring, from becoming tamei, nevertheless, while he's in the mikvah, he himself will become tamei. So too, we can't make that argument. And so the Gemara, so he says, Shema min alo chaylen. So we see from here, I know you have a question, George, I'm going to come back to it. So we see from here that the vow doesn't take effect in the first place. Shema min alo chaylen. We see from here, from the response of Rabbi Eliezer to the Chachamim, that according to Rabbi Eliezer, the vow has never taken effect at all. Because when the Chachamim say that the Chachamim are comparing it to saving this tumah prior from being rejected prior the vow, but with respect to saving the tumah has not fallen upon him at all. So from the fact that that's the comparison, we see from here that Chachamim understand from Rabbi Eliezer that the vow wouldn't take effect if you went ahead in advance and did it, because just like in this case, the ring had never become tamei in the first place. So the Gemara says no. The Gemara is going to reject this, and what we'll do when we do tomorrow's daf, we'll start again here, and we'll see the Gemara's rejection of it. For now, I want to just pause and just address George's question. Yes, George.